Brother Terrelong, please pray.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for yet another opportunity to gather as a committee, to gather as parliamentarians, to gather as family members, to discuss at this very, very important time in our parliamentary circle, in our parliamentary cycle, the roles and functions of us as parliamentarians. Dear Heavenly Father, you know the ways of our hearts, you know the work and the requirements of each and every single one of us. You know the sacrifices we make, especially where family is concerned, where our partners, where our children, where our parents are concerned. You know the many obligations that rest upon our shoulders. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, as they say. And as Member of Parliament, we shoulder the awesome responsibility of which we are all proud, to manage constituencies and to help to direct the affairs of the nation. Dear Heavenly Father, we pray for your guidance as we deliberate on our roles and functions. And we pray that as a society, we can all say we have members of Parliament and a government that belongs to all of us, of which we are all very proud. These and your mercies we ask in Jesus' precious holy name. Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. Let me welcome everyone here today at the Parliament and those who have joined us online. The Honorable, Most Honorable Prime Minister Andrew Holness tabled the Green Paper number 3 and Ministry Paper number 69 at the sitting of the House of Representatives on June 20, 2023. In addressing the Parliament regarding the purpose of the documents, I'm not sure what we should do. Let me turn the volume down. The Prime Minister affirmed that good governance includes the conduct and performance of ministers and members of Parliament, and that the country must have a clear sense of what is required of these officials. Later the same day, the House approved the following motion: be it resolved that the Honourable House appoint a select committee to sit jointly with a similar committee to be appointed by the House of the Senate to examine and consider Ministry Paper 69/2023, dated June 20, 2023, entitled Job Description of Ministers of Government, and Green Paper number 03/2023, dated June 20, 2023, entitled Job Description for Members of Parliament of Jamaica, and 3, Codes of Conduct for Parliamentarians, and to recommend a plan of action for the implementation of standards for performing and accountability, and provide a report of its findings to this House. The Senate also passed a similar motion. It created a committee comprised of the then Speaker, Honourable Mercer Dalrymple Philibert, who was Chairman, Most Honourable Juliet Holness, Member of Parliament, Honourable Dr. Christopher Tufton, MP, Honourable Floyd Green, MP, Ms. Crystal Lee, MP, Mr. Donovan Williams, MP, Mr. Julian Robinson, MP, Mrs. Natalie Nita Garvey, MP, that is from the House, and from the Senate, Senator Cavan Gale, Senator Abka Fitzhenley, Senator Lambert Brown, and that was the Joint Select. At the very first meeting, the Joint Select Committee decided that input from the public would be paramount. They therefore directed that advertisements for submissions be placed in the press, that direct requests for submissions be made to several entities, and that town hall meetings be held in the corporate area and beyond. Their objective was to ensure a broad participation from the people in standardizing job descriptions and codes of conduct for their representatives. Thus far, the committee has held 2 meetings at Parliament, and this will be their second town hall meeting. A recurring theme of the deliberations has been how to ensure that the job descriptions that is ultimately created is actually in line to the needs and aspirations of the Jamaican people, and ensure the members of parliament are empowered to serve them efficiently and sustainably. The characteristics of efficient and sustainable service have been debated, with questions arising as to the appropriateness of certain functions that have come to be expected of members of parliament over the years. Family counseling, wedding financing, wardrobe updating, and a few real-life examples have been recounted during the proceedings, which are too delicate to repeat. Also of concern is the method whereby their performance in this respect will be evaluated. A very key element of this was who, big H, WHO, who will conduct the evaluations of members of parliament and ministers to an extent. It has been noted that there is a standing arrangement in the Jamaican Constitution regarding the consequences of poor performance by a member of parliament. Electors are empowered to choose their representatives in general elections occurring at intervals not exceeding 5 years in normal circumstances, and thereby to reject incumbents whose performance is deemed unsatisfactory. It is important, therefore, that the job description encourage behaviors that are conducive to excellent service delivery. The Prime Minister closed his presentation on the Green Paper and Ministry Paper with the following words: Madam Speaker, our mission is to ensure that the people of Jamaica enjoy the best public service, the best governance, and have access to the best quality of leadership and governance that any country can have, end quote. The job description, codes of conduct, and performance standards emanating from the committee will embody citizens' contribution to this vision through these town hall meetings and their submissions to the committee. At the end of the process, comments and recommendations will be distilled, collated, reviewed, and incorporated into the committee's report to the Parliament, which will influence the content of the job description finally promulgated for the nation's parliamentary representatives. So that is our brief introduction. There are persons already online. There are persons with questions online. Parliamentarians who are here seated, you may take a look also at some of the questions or queries if anybody has questions for us. If there are, in fact, technical difficulties, today's session will be available for replay. So at the end of today's session, we will ensure that the town hall is uploaded to the Parliament's website, and you will be able to take a look at the discussion. Someone has indicated the link is muted, and persons are having technical issues. We are getting feedback and echo. So mute again, see if we have any questions. I believe that the persons online are not hearing us at all. With the technical persons?
Yeah, but
We have some participants online. I'm encouraging you to go on the Parliament website and drop the link, Townhall down, so you can take a look at the current proposed job descriptions for members of Parliament and for ministers, so that you may be able to contribute in terms of your queries or comments. The first question is, can you outline the process that will be engaged to complete the work of the Joint Select Committee? So the Joint Select Committee would have commenced deliberations in their previous meetings and would have, as indicated prior, sought the input of persons within civil society, individuals privately to make their submissions, members from various constituencies to make their contributions. Indeed, all Jamaicans were at liberty to make their contribution in respect of their views for what they believe the role of the Member of Parliament should be, the Code of Conduct for Members of Parliament should be. The committee will be taking a look at all the submissions and will continue with a subsequent deliberation, having collated a matrix of the submissions that have come in for the committee. We do have some submissions so far, not, in my estimation, sufficient, and time is still there for individuals who desire to make an input to do so, after which the next meeting of the committee will be to consider all the material that is available to it, after which a final document will be produced that incorporates as best as possible where we think the direction is from the people of Jamaica, from parliamentarians themselves, in terms of the way forward.
Not at this time, Madam.
Thank you, Member. I should say as well, at the last meeting of the committee, we also received technical guidance on developing performance standards from the Ministry of Finance, and that support is going to continue to be available in standardizing the job descriptions and preparing a mechanism for evaluation. Can we get a timeline for the committee's work? The intent is Parliament should have its last sitting for the rest of this year, next Tuesday, the 12th of December, unless something else occurs. However, it does not prevent the committee from being able to have another meeting, and in any event, it will be meeting no later than the first month of the year, which would be early January. The committee is strongly of the view that job descriptions are critical, a very important step, and we are committed to completing the process as soon as is possible, which we would think will be done in January. The original timeline for reporting was February 2024 in our very first session. And we will, in fact, make the timeline. Are there any other questions? Yes, we are. One person is asking if we are going into. I'm not sure if this question is delayed. Yes, we have had some questions and we have started to answer some of the questions posed online. If there are others, please feel free. Additionally, if there are questions that we will need to collate for subsequent review by the committee members, that will also be done. So we are taping the session so that members of the committee will have the ability to review all the information garnered from the town halls themselves, the questions asked, the perspectives provided by individuals who have participated either in writing or verbally, will be considered by the committee. So go ahead. There is a question in respect of submitting a guiding document online for how submissions are to be made. You may go ahead and just email the Parliament. You can email Clark at japarliament.gov.jm. Another question, can citizens access submissions made by other citizens? Yes. Once the committee comes to the next session to meet, whatever submissions we have will be tabled so that all Jamaicans have the ability to see what is available and what the submissions are. There's a question, what is the deadline for submissions? The deadline for submission has actually passed. It has been extended twice. We would want to give a further extension. With Parliament's closure next Tuesday, we would make the commitment to allow an extension to Friday of that week. I think that is the 15th of December, so that it allows committee members to consider the submissions made and to be in a position the very first week that Parliament resumes in January to be able to meet and to deliberate on the submissions. No, I do not know, nor can I make a commitment based on the question asked by Mr. Wright. Will committee members review other documents such as the Carl Stone report in its deliberations? It is not on the agenda to do. It is something that we can consider. I will be happy to email all members of the committee for them to do so. I would not be able as chair to make a commitment on behalf of the committee in that regard. Some of the questions being asked, I will not countenance or respond to. Please ask the questions that are in respect of job descriptions respectfully. Question, have the committee members received submissions made to the committee already? Yes, we have approximately 5 submissions so far, some from civil society groups, some from individuals. That is our tally so far. And they are submissions that have been thought out. Will the MP job description be effective? That is exactly why we are doing this process and made the effort to allow for opinions, views, submissions from the general public. Why did we choose Parliament for the town hall and not an actual town? Because we have actually chosen actual towns. And as you see here at the Parliament, it is empty and only members of Parliament are here waiting to answer to the public. At the previous town hall, at great cost to the Parliament, the level of attendance was very slim to none. An observation I made at the first town hall that the majority of Jamaicans do not seem to be tied in to the discourse we're having in respect of job descriptions, and we do appreciate highly those persons who have joined us at the town hall, who are asking questions, those persons who have made submissions, because we appreciate your input. As it relates to the question of the extension, it was not widely circulated. Persons who asked for additional time for submissions were given the additional time because they asked. And as a result, I took the opportunity. I hope the members of the committee would find it appropriate, because out of an abundance of caution, we want to give as much time as is possible. And I've unilaterally made a decision as chair to extend the time for submission so that it allows persons who are still wanting to make commentary submissions to do so. I do hope I will have the support of the majority of the members for giving this particular extension. As it relates to the campaign and advertising, widely so, each town hall was advertised in the media, both in print media and on radio, on the Parliament's website. Members of Parliament also went out and advised persons of the town hall sessions. I can tell you I would have done the same as a member of Parliament. My constituents, many were not interested in coming to such a session because many thought they had an excellent MP who worked very hard. Many other members of Parliament, when consulted, their constituents believe that they have a good understanding of the role of an MP, and their member of Parliament was doing what they wanted. It has been the feedback that as far as they're concerned, they are not seeing what more their MPs could be doing and what could go into a job description at this stage that would have MPs doing even more. The benefit of this exercise is one that has actually allowed many Jamaicans who have looked at the process to be very concerned about the heavy burden being expected to be carried by members of Parliament, because for the first time some are having a better appreciation of the legislative work required in coming into the House of Parliament, and many felt like they knew members of Parliament went to Parliament once a week or so, but they thought that the job description was really your work in the various constituencies. So they have, many indicated to various MPs, they have seen the light and they realize that the work, role and responsibility of members of Parliament is far more than they dreamt possible. Question? Can a young member of Parliament explain their day-to-day work as a member of Parliament and what changes they think would help?
Well, I consider myself a young MP, so I'll jump at that. Well, if the person that asks the question have sight of the proposed job description, they could turn to page 5. And page 5 outlines some key responsibility areas. All of these that are mentioned are what we do. All of these. And persons in my constituency are concerned about being accessible. They want the member of Parliament to be accessible 24 hours. And this is not because they are selfish. I don't want persons in society to think that persons who wish to access their member of Parliament 24/7 are selfish. It is simply because most of the time their member of Parliament is a person that can get them some assistance, even assistance that is not dreamt to be a part of a duty of a member of Parliament, or not even possible, you know. But most citizens are not able to access certain information readily or know where to access it. And so they rely on the Member of Parliament. And so they would call upon the Member of Parliament. Outside of that, really, I don't know how we can improve better than what we are doing, which is we are accessible to the extent that we can. Sometimes we are sleeping and we can't answer the phone. Sometimes we are in Parliament and we can't answer the phone readily. We sometimes answer to explain that we are in a meeting, we are in Parliament, and we will call back persons. And I know for a number of my colleagues, the amount of calls that comes in on a daily basis that we try to return is just enormous, and we are not able to return all the calls. The thing is, we are not provided with the kind of resources that we could route the calls through, that could take certain information, provide the answers to our constituent, or even follow up. And those that really need the attention of the Member of Parliament could be referred to the Member of Parliament to action. We are not given that sort of resources, right? And so it makes the job much more challenging, because individually we have to respond to these various calls while attending to the CDF and managing that process, while participating in the debates and attending committee meetings and doing our research and so on. And unlike other jurisdictions who have parliamentary aid to assist each parliament to do their research and to do other things in order to prepare you for Parliament, we don't have that. So we are constantly preparing ourselves for committee meetings, constantly preparing ourselves to debate the various bills that are laid in the Parliament, while attending to our constituent and delivering on the various aspects that we must. There's no excuse we have. And so we do that. So to answer the part of the question, what else could we ask for? And that is the kind of resources that some jurisdiction would have to assist Member of Parliament. But we understand that there are other priorities that must be attended to, and so we do our best. I hope that answers the question.
I'm seeing someone asking questions re-impeachment. I believe it is something that members will have to consider. I do not see very clearly how easy that is going to be placed in the job description of members of Parliament, because impeachment requires a level of behavior that is tantamount to almost criminal. For you to have done something that allows for prosecution and removal as a member of Parliament outside of having the people who elected you removing you as a member of Parliament, and that is very challenging. The job descriptions really making an effort to outline, both for new members of Parliament, for existing members of Parliament, and for their constituents, an appreciation generally of the role. So let's give an example of what the average member of parliament life is like. You're required to have yourself, the individual working, the member of parliament. You're required to have a functioning constituency office. You are required through your office to take requests for assistance, for needs in respect of benefits, to take requests for advocacy to agencies such as National Work Agency, National Water Commission, requests to go to various ministries and agencies and departments of government for help. So if somebody needs education assistance, compassionate grant, if somebody needs medical assistance, medication, funeral aid, if you're a farmer and you're in need of help, if you need help for housing. And so many of those requests will either come to the MP individually, which is passed to their office, or to the office of the Member of Parliament for advocacy. Many members of Parliament are better able to function when they have constituencies that have a lot of citizens group, because you are able to get feedback from a cross-section of individuals in helping to make decisions. Now, a part of the job description entails biannual consultations with CDF. But if you are like myself, so I'm going to read a message sent just this morning. Let me go into my phone. This is for Harborview Citizens Association as an example. And I write, I will be selecting one road per division at $2 million for Christmas patching allocation. Please see the list of roads that are in the Harborview division assigned to the Member of Parliament. Harbour Drive, Port Nugent, and I continue the list. Please note list. I'll try to select the worst road, i.e. one never patched before. The community feedback would be appreciated. This allows for persons within the community to be able to submit to the Member of Parliament what their issues are in respect of road, so they can feel a part of selecting which roads are fixed. And this we would be required to do on a division-by-division basis, a community-by-community basis, and all members of Parliament do that exercise through various means. Either people call their office, call their phones personally, write to their offices, or they go to Citizens Association meetings. So that gives you a broad sense of the volume of advocacy. Persons are required to even help to write grants, form groups, farmers groups, different CDCs, community development groups, so that they can try to access grants, try to help in any way they can. However, they still have an entire arm of the responsibility, which is outlined here. Member Sibley's indicated that on the Parliament's website, it details the key responsibility areas, your CDF, being able to assist in debating on bills and motions in the House, voting on them, making yourself present, actually writing your projects, making sure that they're submitted on time. If your projects are not submitted, work can't end up being done in your constituency. Monitoring the work that is done to the best of your ability, that it is actually executed. Keeping these meetings so that persons in your constituency can partake and give their own feedback and input, and reporting to the CDF office. There are persons who are in various citizens association, in various civil society groups, who would like to see more reports coming from members of Parliament, something standardized, which we have passed on to the Constituency Development Fund office. We have never had a standardized report for constituency performance reports. And these constituency performance reports are actually what we come to Parliament to debate. So perception of the public in terms of what they would want to see from us versus an understanding of what we do when we stand in the Parliament to give a debate, which is a report in your constituency debate of the funding you got, the issues you saw, what were the issues you were able to resolve, and continue to say the issues you're still not able to resolve because the resources are not there, is actually a report. It's a constituency report, and it is not structured where everybody gives the same exact report. Everybody comes and debates and reports in keeping with their own style as Member of Parliament, with the idiosyncrasies of their various constituencies and communities. And if we try to box every Member of Parliament in a single box where everybody was required to just give this dead exact report, it would still not work. We would be bored. We would ultimately realize that the job of Member of Parliament is so unique sometimes because of the type of constituency you're in, the needs of your various constituencies, where your people are, what are the resources currently available in your constituency. It's a myriad of issues, myriad of thought processes, and it is one of the jobs that requires such a diverse level of skills that has never been seen before. Are there any other members who would like to make a contribution in this regard? There is a Member of Parliament here from the West, and they're calling on you, Member Clark, because you're the one here from the West, it must be you, to give your experience, what it is like. Oh, I am happy. Member Clark is not the only one who tells you about the travels. So you have George right here, independent member. You have Roy Clark here. And you have even Norman Dunn, whose constituency is all the way in St. Mary, and he lives in Kingston. You have Michelle Charles here. Her constituency is in St. Thomas, and she's in Kingston. You have a lot of members of Parliament who, based on this question, Crystal Lee, her constituency is all the way there in St. Anne. So many members of Parliament have to travel far away from home to their constituencies and travel back to Parliament and to committee meetings so that they can contribute as is required and stay over. So, Member Clark, give them a little idea what it is like to travel to Kingston for parliamentary work and what changes would help in this area. And I know Mr. George Wright will already tell us what he needs for that area. He has been advocating. Member Clark?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. To the constituent who wishes to know how it is that we do this work on a daily basis, it is very, very tedious at times, especially when you're asked to come into Kingston on a split situation, meaning, Madam Chair, that you are here on a Monday for a committee meeting and you miss Tuesday, but you have to be back on a Wednesday. So, you know, the traveling goes two-way. Parliament provides a driver, but in using your driver, you are now asked as a member of Parliament to find boarding for that driver. And so it is not often that you can always use your driver. If you are coming into Kingston for a day in which you come in the morning and leave in the afternoon, then yes, you can always use the service of your driver. But for me, who comes into Kingston maybe on a Monday afternoon for an evening meeting, stays on a Tuesday and a Wednesday for Parliament, then it is very difficult to provide housing for a driver. And so we wish, it is our wish, and I can speak for my colleagues who also have the privilege of drivers, that something, or the Parliament looks into the situation of providing housing for our drivers. Notwithstanding all of that, I am one who is lucky to have an apartment in Kingston. But we still have members of Parliament who from 2020, September 2020, they have to be traveling back and forth every evening. George Wright does that. Danny Lawrence does that. Delroy Slowly does that. And a host of others who live out in the countryside who have to do that. And more than Wilson does that, Frank Witter does that. So, Madam Chair, it is high time, and we have been lobbying in different spheres for Parliament, because Parliament will know once the election results are out. Parliament will now know how many members of Parliament, or it is already slated that out of the 63 of us, how many persons are from the rural area. And so right away, it should not be a hard and fast situation. Parliament should make sure that housing is provided for these members of Parliament and also the driver, if so desired. But at least for the members of Parliament who has to be here present and has to be here on time, Madam Chair, if I don't come in overnight, I will have to leave as early as 4 a.m. in the morning to start my journey to Kingston. Because yes, you only takes maybe two hours to get to Caymanas Toll. But once you get to Caymanas Toll, then the morning traffic takes another hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours to get into Kingston. So that becomes a burden on us. As it is said, you ask for the job, and so you have to do the job, notwithstanding the pressure that comes to bear. A lot of times we are going, and even going home in the afternoon, you have to now encounter the traffic going out. And so it becomes very tiring. You're away from home, from your family, for an extensive period of time. Luckily, your family, most 99% of the time, are supportive enough to know that, okay, daddy, the spouse, the husband, he's in Kingston at Parliament, and so we have to we have to do what is necessary until he gets home. By the time you get home, it is just time now to wake up in the morning. Fortunately or unfortunately, I live in my constituency. So whether I like it or not, a constituency day for me is a day once I am at home or I am at work in the parish. And so there are some changes that we would love to see. I do believe that we are a set of people that were asked to be public servants. And so we are not able to quarrel too much. We are not here to cry too much about the situation. You went into a binding contract with the constituents, and so they elect you, and your job is just to represent them, comes with me.
Thank you, Member Clark. There's a question: do you believe that the work of the Parliament and MPs are aided by the Parliament's website, and that an upgrading of the website is overdue? When I read the question, I smiled, because I find that there is still a disconnect between appreciating that we are coming from what was called third world to developing state, to literally now moving out of poverty into prosperity. And that takes a time for us to be at a place where the country is well off enough that we are able to do some of the things financially that we know would be in our best interest in being better able to serve. The resources sometimes would not necessarily be there. So like a Roy Clark responding a while ago, George Wright, Donnie Lawrence, Morland Wilson, all these persons, it would have been easier if when they got into Kingston, there was a facility that they could stay overnight, they could take a shower, put on clothes and head into Parliament. And if you're still here for Wednesday, they have the facility to go back, get a night's rest, and they're out. But you do have members who drive to and fro to go back home if they can't find anywhere, or from their own salary, they are required to pay to stay at a 5-star, what, 1-star, I would have to call it a 1-star hotel or a motel in a way, just to cut somewhere to be able to function at Parliament. That is the truth of the experience. They don't have a choice. Member Sibley said as much. We don't have the facility of an assistant that works with you at Parliament to help with bills and motions. There are jurisdictions that are more wealthy than ours, more established, more first world. They can afford things we cannot yet afford, and they have that significant level of support. We do a lot with the little that we have, and we, as Member Clark said, we don't complain. We know this is what we signed up for, and a big part of what we signed up for is to make Jamaica a better place in which persons who come after us would be better able to function, better able to serve, because the resources available continue to grow and grow till we are in a first world status. For the Parliament, I will do a session in time, because even for me as a new speaker and as deputy speaker, I genuinely did not have the level of appreciation of the back office operation of the Parliament. I didn't have a full appreciation of the role in respect of Hansard, accounting, IT department, human resource department, the drivers, the orderlies, the committees, the attendants, the fact that we run a canteen. It was an eye-opener for me to realize that we had payroll to do. The clerk had lots of responsibilities. There were so many departments, corporate services, legal services. It was a lot to appreciate that the Parliament actually has a back office business running that nobody really sees or knows exists, other than when we come to Parliament on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday, or if someone tunes into a committee meeting. We have ministers who are in the same position and members of Parliament who travel on government business, going to various events to represent Jamaica. It is challenging for them. They still, as ministers, have a ministry to run. Same for the Speaker. The ministry is effectively right here at the Parliament, working along with the clerk, which is basically the Parliament's permanent secretary. And those ministers have the ministry. They have to come to Parliament just like we do as MPs to do our legislative work, and they have to still go into their constituencies to maintain their constituency. So whether you're a state minister giving significant support to the minister, a minister, it is a substantial load to carry for individuals. And over time, I would hope that Jamaicans start to get a greater and greater sense of appreciation for the volume of work, particularly for those who genuinely put out and get the work done. We will continue to work on our Parliament website. The communications department is small. It's a department of 1 now. I think we are up to 2. And when you look at the organization chart for the Parliament, we do have significantly more needs than the resources that we currently have. So we are making do with what we have, and we're making good. The Parliament is in desperate need of significant modernization, significant upgrade in terms of technology, use of technology, and that is going to put us in better stead to be able to deliver far more and far more efficiently in updating our parliamentary website and for persons to be able to use it. I discussed so many departments, I forgot the registry, the library. Research is done by the Parliament for persons who write to us asking for information. So it is a lot that is on the plate of persons who are required to function. In light of what the Speaker has said, is it time for the handbook that is given to MPs is updated? Yes, continuously updated, including the standing orders. The handbook is a very tiny book. Once job descriptions are completed, it will become a part of the document submitted to members of Parliament and ministers. For members of parliament who are also ministers, their work is impacted by their ministerial work. Is it due time for ministers not to be MPs? No, it is very difficult because our constitution requires that the persons who are substantially given the role and responsibility of crafting policies that direct the lives of the people should be persons selected by the people. And that is primarily the thinking behind our constitution requiring that a certain number of persons must have been elected. And that is key to why the Minister of Finance must be an elected representative, because the rule is no taxation without representation. And so that question will always be a challenging one, because the perception is you must be on the ground in the constituency struggling with us, understanding us, to be able to go to Parliament and truly represent us. And that's the idea behind it. Read the question in respect of code of conducts that were being drafted but not yet submitted by the cabinet. The Parliament is not at liberty to table anything that has not been submitted to the Parliament for tabling. If something is being worked on by the cabinet and it has not been submitted to the Parliament, we are not able to table it until it is so completed. So read a question from Ms. Calder. We have in fact had discussions from the committee level with persons, particularly the Minister for Constitutional and Legal Affairs, in respect of finalizing so that we can have available the draft code of conduct. What would be the ideal staff for an MP? Different seats are different, and the debate continues to rage. There are some seats that are large and rural. They may not contribute a lot to the tax package, but hard to manage. There are other constituencies that are tiny. There are some constituencies that are more wealthy. The people who live there are middle class, upper class, and there are very few inner city areas, areas of significant need. Every constituency is in fact different. It is provided currently one constituency secretary for the constituency and a constituency driver, which many members of Parliament use as their driver or don't use a driver, and leave that driver in the constituency to work along with the office. However, it would be wonderful if members of Parliament had a cadre of individuals that included a paid Constituency Development Fund officer outside of the Constituency Development Fund. If it included a constituency secretary managing there, so you have someone for projects, you have someone who is constituency development. However, it would be wonderful if there were another function added, someone who literally moves around the constituency picking up needs and doing educational work, because a lot of persons do not have a genuine appreciation for the social work aspect of members of Parliament. Literally, MPs will explain benefits available, and you realize for some constituencies, you have to do it over and over and over again. Persons genuinely don't know how to access help from the Ministry of Labour, they come to the Member of Parliament. They don't know how to get to JPS, they come to the Member of Parliament. If they need the cable service, they come to the Member of Parliament. If the garbage is not collected, the Member of Parliament. If they need some grant funding, the Member of Parliament. And the list goes on and on and on. As a matter of fact, I found a case, somebody had a fire, Their house was burnt. We told them, okay, you need to come, fill out this fire report, get the fire department to come. I was shocked last week. The person said, I still don't have a TRN because it burned up in the fire and I need a TRN. And the idea was to come back to the Member of Parliament to go get the TRN. So you do have persons, we have issued checks because they've asked for a benefit, and then long afterwards they say to me, what should I have done with the check? Simple issues of that nature. Many people require a Member of Parliament to explain some of what many Jamaicans take for granted is simple and does not require anyone's help. There are many Jamaicans, no matter how simple and basic you think it is, that depend on their Member of Parliament or their office to explain simple things, and that help they desperately need. Yes, Member Terrell.
Madam Speaker, just to add as well, you had spoken in terms of our colleagues who are out west and those who travel into Kingston for when we have parliamentary sits, etc., and also just in terms of the job description generally. And I thought about oftentimes when persons discuss the role of parliamentarians on social media, Twitter in one particular space, and I find a lot of times they tend to compare Jamaica to Barbados, for example, not realizing that Barbados is about 430 kilometers square, and it's the size of Hanover, exactly. Hanover. Yes. It is, and I know it perfectly fits right there into Hanover as well, the exact same 430 square meters. And what I want to say to Jamaicans really is that, and I said it in the prayer, it is full time as a nation. We understand that we have 63 members of parliament who do a mammoth job, willingly so, obviously, because we put ourselves up to be represented, because we understand that we want to make a contribution to nation building. We do understand, the demands that come with the job, whether it is time away from family, whether it is, at great health, at great risk to health in terms of, for example, maybe not being able, lack of sleep, the demands of work and so forth. But for us to appreciate the work that we do as members of parliament and as a government as well, there's no country that could run in a structured way without government or without good governance. And so it is time for us to look at it as it is our government, it is our member of parliament, and put aside, petty partisan politics whilst recognizing, the core functions that we all do. One of the things that we also do, I didn't hear it mentioned as well, but even as members of parliament, Madam Speaker, we also fill the role of caregivers and there's a social work aspect of it, but also to be there for families in time of great need, So yes, there's a flooding, and yes, the members of parliament are there. We are trying to assist persons, whose houses have been damaged, whose roofs are leaking and so forth, in time of great grief as well. It is the member of parliament's office as well that so many constituents turn to say, listen, grandmother has passed, child has passed, parent has passed, family members have passed. How can we get some assistance just to bury our dead? It is the member of parliament who is also there to assist with the 9-day celebration to say, well, all right, let's remember the life. The member of parliament is providing, goods as well. And also just to be there at the church service or at the, some of us have grave digging in rural constituencies. And they're there as well, just to be there. So yes, when it's time for an election and you're victorious and you celebrate with the constituency, but also in times of bereavement, you're also there with them. So really, the job description, as noted, it captures some important points as well, but there are other points that you could never truly articulate, in terms of a job description, simply because the member of parliament really stands in a capacity of great leadership which we do not take for granted at all. Great leadership within the constituency to spearhead from the development, whether it's in terms of the road work, to something as simple as, and as meaningful to our constituents as knowing that my Member of Parliament was there for my child's graduation, my Member of Parliament was there issuing scholarships at school. Thanks to my Member of Parliament and the work being done, my child, was able to go to school and get a degree or get a high school, get the CSEC or the CAPE, or my Member of Parliament was there in time of bereavement as well. So it really, really is unending. I like to tell persons that, being a Member of Parliament, it's literally, you're the backbone of the constituency, and you're the backbone of so many families and, and so many lives that literally depend on the work that you do, and we don't take it for granted. So I always say to my family, just understand that if I don't do the work that I do, there are some 36,000 persons, who would not benefit from different aspects of it. And then there are also members in society who will say very critically of parliamentarians as well that, oh, but the parliamentarian work, it's too paternalistic and everything else, and I do this because I don't want to get this, and not to give people money or go in your pocket and whatever. But the truth is, Madam Speaker, on a Thursday religiously is my constituency office day. I go to the ministry first, and I leave the ministry by 1 o'clock. I'm in my constituency office by 2 p.m. And we're there until the last person leaves, Madam Speaker. So if the last person leaves at 10 p.m., especially during the back to school, we're sometimes there until 11 o'clock at night, 11 p.m. during the back to school period. But we're there until the last person leaves. And when you have, for example, an elderly lady who comes into your office and she says, MP, I haven't eaten all day, I have no money, I have no children to take care of me, you cannot, in good conscience, turn her away or say to her, oh, well, I'm going to try and register for the PATH program, because that PATH program registration, it might take in excess of 3 to 4 weeks. It might take months. You cannot say to that person, okay, well, I will now write a letter to the CDS office recommending you for a benefit to go to the supermarket. That might take 2 to 3 weeks, etc. So you assist as any good Jamaican is expected to assist. So yes, there's a paternalistic part of it as well, but it is about helping our fellow Jamaicans. It is about, as well, yes, paternalistic and maternalistic, like in your case, Madam Speaker, that is correct. But we do it because in good conscience, we understand what it means to be able to assist our fellow Jamaicans. And even we consider our backgrounds. Madam Speaker, I'm looking at our colleagues who are here now. Not one of us come from a Tapanaris family. We are all members of Parliament from humble grassroots beginnings. MP, Madam Speaker, you are from Spanish Town, St. Catherine. I'm from Grand Spen. MP down here, it was raised in the market in St. Mary. Roy, again, from a very, very rural upbringing. All of us here, MP Miller is here as well. So we grew up understanding that we wanted to make a difference in the lives of other Jamaicans. So it's making a contribution to national development, making a contribution to community development, but also making a contribution to the development of the lives of the next generation of young kings and queens. So for me, it is a great honor to be able to serve my constituents and also to serve the government of Jamaica. Not one that we take lightly, but so certainly, Madam Speaker, for persons to understand that the job that we do, it is really one that we also respect, but for all Jamaicans to recognize that it is our collective MPs, our collective government, our collective ministers, because there's no country that could truly be on the path of prosperity without members of Parliament working and a government working for the people.
All right, thank you. There is a question here: will members of Parliament office no longer be painted in orange or green? My office is not painted in orange or green. It is a combination of yellow and teal and blue, and it is deliberately so done to ensure that persons feel comfortable regardless of their political persuasion. However, the question is a challenging one because the Member of Parliament's office is not necessarily an office provided by the government for whomever the Member of Parliament is. Very often the space is rented by the MP, paid for by the MP, and when that person goes, they're gone. So you will find that sometimes two offices exist in a constituency. One is being paid for by the opposition person, whoever that is, and one is being paid for by the government person, but not the government per se. In order for us to get to a place where there is one constituency office, or more than one depending on the size of the seat, it would require that the government buys, owns the land, owns the property, or pays the rent, and establishes that facility as the constituency office. And when one person is elected, they go in, and when they are removed, then they would remove themselves. That would have to be the transition. But many persons choose not to paint their office green or orange, even if they are the ones funding the office themselves. Member Clark?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. You know, funny enough is that those persons who really need the assistance of the Member of Parliament and wishes to visit an office because that's where they're going to see their Member of Parliament doesn't necessarily see the color that the office is painted in. The support or the assistance that they get from that office is what really matters. And so everybody understands what the color stands for, and so we must be mindful, and we can always move away from the actual color of the situation. And because a Member of Parliament, Madam Chair, is elected, even though not everybody voted on that they voted for him, he is now the Member of Parliament for that constituency. And so we rise above and we move away from the color just the same.
Member Siblings?
You know, Chair, it is just 3 weeks ago, somebody pointed out to me that my constituency office, which I rent and pay out of my pocket, is painted in orange. I was always colorblind because I'm not seeing the color per se. I'm not saying that there are not things there that...
Your office is painted in orange. Are you a member from the PMP or
No,
the governing party?
I'm a member of the Jamaica Labour Party, which its color is green, right? But the building that I rented is orange, but I never recognized because I'm colorblind as well, because it never mattered to me. It never mattered to me what the color was, What mattered to me was that I got an adequate space, big enough to serve the people of Clarendon Northern. Right? So it was just 3 weeks ago, somebody pointed out to me, then how comes your office in an orange? You know? So to those persons who are concerned about the color of offices, I understand their concern because of where this country is coming from. But where this country is going is that members of Parliament are serving all members of the constituency. Nobody is turned back. Once you come to the constituency office, you are not turned back. So persons who are active members of the Jamaica Labour Party in my constituency, they have never turned back because the building is orange. They come for their benefit, just like persons who are active members of the PMP. They come to my office because they come to the Member of Parliament whose policy is similar to my other colleagues, is that nobody, whether you are an activist or a simple member of the constituency who vote, you come and you shall be served.
Thank you, Member. There are some questions we may not be able to complete in the time slot here. We will try to answer online. There is a question in terms of the Constituency Development Fund and how it could be made more effective. This question is from Mr. Wright. And Mr. Wright, I have been spending some time looking at your submission. You have some good pointers there as well. The Constituency Development Fund, if it is understood, was never intended to be the vehicle via which members of Parliament effect all the work required for their various constituencies. The various ministries, the agencies of government, the various departments are actually the vehicle that should be used to effect all the work and all the benefits that should go to people within constituencies right across Jamaica. However, it was observed that the government bureaucracy that slowed sometimes the pace at which the service was delivered required a tweaking. And so the Constituency Development Fund was introduced by then Prime Minister Bruce Golding. At the time, and I love to repeat this, the Constituency Development Fund was $40 million. Now, 16 years later, the Constituency Development Fund is half that amount. It's $20 million. And with inflation, it is probably worth 10. So the amount that members of Parliament have is significantly reduced to be able to answer to minor constituency development needs and emergency response within 2 to 3 weeks. That's really what it is about, trying to ensure within a period of 2 to 3 weeks, and if it is something of the nature of farm road or, work projects like wall or road, it's going to be longer, but that you can respond to issues of that nature. The very sound of the amount tells you that even if you have a lot of consultation with communities and there's a lot of discussion with civil society and various interest groups to hold you accountable, you cannot perform in a way that exceeds the money that you have gotten. It is not cash that you get in your pocket. It is a program of documenting the need. If it's individual, it's signed, and then it is submitted for the allocation to be paid to the company, the school, the pharmacy, the hospital, the place where the invoice was, if it's for business assistance. That is what is done. So the Member of Parliament and the perceived role that you will have a lot of resources that you can channel and that you can organize to spend, it is not true. Member Clark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for addition to what you have just read from Judge Wright, Madam, I want to say to the person who posed that question that $20 million, for example, my constituency has 38,000 persons on the voters list. Divide 20 million by 38,000, you get $526.31. So just imagine that we still, that funding is still woefully lacking where it.
I agree with you, Member Clark. I have had to do the same because when some persons hear 20 million, they think it is 20 billion. And when I do that and divide it, I will say to them, look, I have 500 persons sitting on the list asking for housing assistance. The amount is $3 million, that's the cap. I have more than 4,000 or 5,000 young people who need help with education assistance. The cap is 5 million. So it's a lot. And it means that many members of Parliament end up going into their pocket, into their salary to be able to support. So one of the questions is it fair that Jamaicans treat MPs like they're their family member with money that they can get help from and not as servants of the people, and this practice needs to stop? Now, many of the questions you have asked, Mr. Wright, is the reality of MPs. Culture of Jamaicans will take a while to change. Being a member of parliament is no different from someone who is running a business. Someone running a business is not going to run the business so that they lose and that they go home with nothing. If they're selling biscuits, their work is going to be to increase the volume of biscuits that they sell. If they're selling juice, they want to make a profit from it so they can survive. Ultimately, a member of parliament is going to work to remain. And so if the culture of the people is that my member of parliament needs to be God Almighty, my member of parliament must answer me at 2 a.m., the member of parliament who wants to be back is going to do as their constituents demand. And it doesn't matter ultimately what is on the job description. That's a reality to face. We are going to have to engage our constituents once this exercise is finished, say what the job description is, continue to repeat what it is. But it is going to take some time for the need of our constituents, their understanding of what they want from us, to meet what is the official documented job description. And if you think for a minute that you can go and say, well, this is now the official role of the MP, you do not call me for anything, do not ask me to do anything outside of this job description and role and function, I promise you, you will not be an MP next term, and I wish you all the best. We are creatures of needing to ensure that for you to be back here doing what you love, which is serving the people, you are going to need the people to vote for you to be back. And to do that is going to take time to have that cultural shift in what they want of you versus what you think you should do. George Wright would like to be added. I'll add one more thing before I go to George Wright. It is being asked who will hold one accountable, who will do all these evaluations, whether or not members of parliament have agreed and signed on to the job descriptions. Yes, members of parliament have gotten this communication, ministers have gotten it. As a collective, we will ultimately be required to agree. I am sure many members of parliament as individuals within themselves feel that this is somewhat close to almost impossible, but they having said, many of them, that this is almost impossible, literally are going forward, willing to sign on to being able to achieve the impossible. Member Wright?
Thank you very much, Madam. Madam, I'm very much pleased to be the Member of Parliament for Westmoreland Central. But speaking about the job description, I can say without a doubt, Madam, that most employee or employer, when they hire a person to work, it is a 40 hours work. But being a member of parliament, it is a 7 days per week. And sometimes it's like a 24/7 job. And, you know, what I like about being a member of parliament is that quite a number of persons don't know where they can access government grants and all of that. And we are there to enlighten them. You know, as you spoke about the grants, believe me, sometimes we as members of parliament have to push our hands deep in our pocket to assist our constituents. You know, so I personally know that being the member of parliament for Westmoreland Central, it really sometimes takes you away from your family. And as my brother over here, member, spoke about us driving all the way from Westmoreland to Parliament, it is not easy. And what time is it now? It is approximately 8 o'clock. And after I leave here, I'll be going back to Westmoreland. So during it all the way in the night, sometimes you reach home 1 o'clock. And as 5, 6 o'clock, you have to get up and be on the ground. So, but, you know, I know the task at hand, and I am committed to the task, you know, so. But, you know, we, as you mentioned, that the 20 million that we would have gotten, which a part of that goes to the CDF officer. And then the remaining, you know, madam, so many people dying now that our funeral grants is $250,000 per quarter. And that can be done in 1 week. 1 week. Right? But most of the time and when I say, I'm not talking for myself, I know that my other colleagues, they are doing the same thing. They have to even buy a bottle of rum, you know, buy some water or something and take to the dead yard. And I can tell you that I am very much known to be one who visited the dead yard, the funeral, the 9-night, you know, the church service, right across my constituency. So, to speak about the job description, I know most of us would be going way and beyond our job description. Thank you.
So, members, we are just about at close. We'll take one last question. Someone says, who should we go to if we get turned back by an MP when we try to get help? Now, as I said, the MP may turn you back because there is just no more resources left. If the Constituency Development Fund is depleted, they can't do any more. However, many members of Parliament, even if they're unable to give you from the Constituency Development Fund, will write a letter. So they will write the letter to Ministry of Labour and Social Security asking for assistance for you. They will write letters to Ministry of Education for help for you, Ministry of Health for help for persons. So it depends on what your needs are. And whether or not the resources are there, that is possible. Having an appreciation that you could have actually written a letter for yourself, you could have gone to the ministry for yourself, it's actually possible. The challenge is sometimes it is a little difficult because the ministry cannot manage the volume of persons. And so the benefit of the Member of Parliament's office or the Councillor's office is to be able to collate, do the letters, have someone who calls and follow up, and that is what they do. But remember, it is not all the time that you hear no, that they're just not interested in helping. Literally, the demands far, 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 far outweigh, the needs outweigh what is available to the Member of Parliament to provide. Persons have asked about operational manuals. Many MPs do exactly that. And the ministries provide pamphlets and charts that are in many constituency offices that help you with the process. There are persons who may not even be able to read or write. Constituency office have staff within them that help persons to understand the process, whether or not they are able to read and write for themselves. Let me acknowledge all the staff here at the Parliament who have been a part of this process in not just doing this town hall meeting. We have had persons from communications, committee clerk, Ms. Cohen here, IT, Hansard, our clerk. We have persons who are on the PBCJ line, persons, civil society who have participated, who have sent in their submissions, very grateful. And to every single person who have joined us on YouTube in the audience, one of our committee members, Minister Floyd Green, he was also online with us. Let us acknowledge him as well. And we thank everyone who joined in participating, who joined us here online, who joined us here in the House of Parliament or ventured out to a town hall. We are grateful for all the contributions, and we look forward to, at the end of this process, being able to provide a service as members of Parliament that is understood, that is in keeping with the expectations of Jamaicans as best as possible, and that helps to guide members of Parliament in terms of what is expected of them. And on a broader scale, the ministers who are expected to be guided. Member Robert Miller, Member Alanda Terrelong, Member Norman Dunn, Member Michelle Charles, Member Crystal Lee, Member Dwight Sibley's, Member George Wright, Member Hero Clark. Thank you all for taking the time out to be a part of this session and for contributing your insights as you have functioned as members of Parliament for either a term or two. Hopefully, you will enjoy working under the conditions, and as have been said by individuals online, please pay close attention to what is being asked of us and ensure that we are in a position to at least be able to manage what we are signing up for going forward under the rudiments of having written, established job descriptions for members of Parliament. Thank you very much. I do not think we need to move a motion for adjournment as we would normally do at committees. However, I would want to ask someone to so move, and Michelle has moved for adjournment and Crystal has seconded. Once again, thanks everyone, goodbye, and we look forward to your continued notes, suggestions, comments, and input. Are we offline? Someone asked a question on YouTube. We're not sure we're able to answer. It was the time frame in terms of when we would have job descriptions implemented, code of conducts implemented. We would not be able to answer that question. From our perspective, our job is to have the documents ready for the participation of individuals, but in respect of when they would be implemented, that will now be coming back to the House for the membership from the House of Representatives to move forward in respect of the date and time for full implementation. Yeah, we would not be able to preempt the House. We cannot instruct the House. We can just go back, as indicated initially, with our report coming out of the session and coming out of the committee meetings. Thank you.